Song Weilong is known as a quiet, even mysterious figure. In interviews, he rarely opens up completely. His answers are brief, his expressions restrained, and his emotions seemingly well-controlled. But that's precisely what makes many curious. Who is he really like when the cameras aren't on him? In real life, Song Weilong isn't the type to show off. He's not someone who easily flaunts affection in public. However, from those closest to him, one consistent trait emerges. He's someone who shows his affection through small actions, not big words. He's known to be quite protective of his circle of friends. Not in a possessive sense, but more in a sense of maintaining boundaries. In the cutthroat and competitive Chinese entertainment industry, this kind of attitude is rare. Many compete to be close, but Song Weilong chooses to be selective. His friends call him a good listener. He may not say much, but when someone speaks to him, he truly listens. He doesn't interrupt, doesn't judge, and doesn't try to be the center of attention. This attitude made him secretly loved by many around him. However, when it came to Xiao Jin Mai, the atmosphere was different. On camera, their interactions seemed lighthearted, sometimes even awkward in a cute way. But many fans noticed small details, the lingering glances, the seemingly unexplained smiles, or the way Song Weilong slightly changed his demeanor when Xiao Jin Mai was around. Was it just professionalism? Or was there something more personal? Some of the production crew members shared their impressions indirectly. They said that Song Weilong became more lively when Xiao Jin Mai was on set. He smiled more often, was more relaxed, and sometimes even started conversations, something he rarely did with other people. Xiao Jin Mai herself was known for being cheerful and energetic. She brought a warm atmosphere wherever she went. Many said that her personality was a perfect contrast to Song Weilong's, and that's precisely where their chemistry lies. When the cameras were off, their relationship didn't become cold or formal as is often the case with other on-screen couples. Instead, they kept talking, laughing, and even paying attention to each other in the little things. There was a moment when Xiao Jin Mai looked exhausted after a long shoot. Without a word, Song Weilong simply approached, gave her space, and made sure she was okay. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't overly dramatic, but enough to show that he cared. This is what led many to believe that Song Weilong isn't the classic romantic type. He's not the type to make big surprises or openly express his love. But he's the type who will always be there, quietly, consistently, and sincerely. Romantic in his own way. However, on the other hand, precisely because of his secretive demeanor, it's difficult to truly know what he feels. He's never explicitly confirmed any relationship, including with Xiao Jin Mai. All that exists are small pieces that fans have to piece together for themselves. And that's where the mystery deepens. Are those small gestures of attention merely a form of professionalism? Is the closeness simply due to the demands of the role? Or are they choosing to keep something more precious than mere public exposure? In the entertainment world, not all relationships need to be made public. Some are actually stronger when kept quiet. Song Weilong seems to understand this all too well. He's in no rush to explain himself to the world. He doesn't feel the need to prove anything to the public. And perhaps, if there really is something between him and Xiao Jin Mai, he'll choose to keep it low-key, away from the spotlight. Because, in the end, not all love stories need to be visible to be real. And perhaps, it's the invisible ones that are the most honest. However, the more one reads into their relationship, the clearer it becomes that there are deliberately guarded boundaries. It's not that they're trying to hide something negative, but rather that they're protecting something precious from being damaged by excessive scrutiny. In a world where every move can become news, distancing themselves from exposure can actually be a form of protection. Song Weilong seems to be the type of person who doesn't want to mix his private life with his public image. He understands how quickly public opinion can change, how a small moment can be misinterpreted, and how pressure can ruin something that's actually simple. And perhaps that's also why he always seems so cautious. On the other hand, the more expressive Xiao Jin Mai seems to adapt when he's around her. She doesn't lose her cheerfulness, but there's a calmer, more refined side to her. It's as if she understands Song Weilong's rhythm without needing to be explained. Some fans call this dynamic a silent balance. There aren't many words, No grand gestures, but there's a palpable understanding. This isn't a relationship full of drama, but one that develops slowly, and that's precisely why it feels deeper. There were also small moments that were barely caught on camera, but were noticed by those around them. Like how Song Weilong reflexively noticed details. Whether Xiao Jin Mai was comfortable, whether the atmosphere was too crowded, or whether she needed some alone time. Simple things that often go unnoticed. And what's interesting is that all of this was done without expecting any backlash. There was no attempt to appear good in public. There was no forced image. It all felt natural, as if it were already a part of who they were. In many cases, relationships in the entertainment industry often feel fleeting. They get close because of a project, then drift apart afterward. But with them, there's a sense that the closeness isn't entirely dependent on work. There's something that persists, even when the cameras aren't rolling. Perhaps that's what keeps people talking about them. Not because of the hype, but because of a rare authenticity. In a world filled with strategy and image, the presence of a genuine connection is something that's hard to ignore. And in the end, whether they truly have a special connection or not may no longer be the most important thing. Because what was visible, the way they treated each other with respect, care, and sincerity, was enough to tell one thing, that whatever was between them, it wasn't just an act. The longer the public observes, the more one undeniable realization emerges, that not all closeness needs to be labeled. Sometimes it's precisely when something isn't defined that it has room to grow in a more honest way. And it's relationships like these that are often the most difficult to understand from the outside. Song Weilong doesn't seem to be the type to rush into assigning meaning to things. He prefers to feel, experience, and let time do the talking. In today's fast-paced world, this approach feels almost rare, and perhaps that's what makes him so different. Xiao Jin Mai, on the other hand, seems to savor every moment without being overly burdened by speculation. She remains herself, still laughs freely, still shines in her own way. But when she's around Song Weilong, a calmness emerges, as if she's found a space she doesn't need to fill with excess energy. The two seem to speak an unheard language, not through words, but through presence. Through the way they give each other space, respect each other, and understand each other without the need for much explanation. Many people think a strong relationship should always be obvious, full of expressions, full of confessions, full of big moments. But what happened between them was the exact opposite. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but that's precisely what made it feel so real. And perhaps that's where its power lies. There's no pressure to prove anything. No pressure to meet public expectations. Just two people navigating their own dynamic, in their own way. Behind all the speculation, one thing that's undeniable is the respect they show each other. In every interaction, there's a boundary to be maintained, but also an undeniable closeness. A rare combination. Over time, perhaps the truth will come out, or perhaps it never will. But sometimes, a mystery isn't something to be solved. Sometimes, it becomes part of the story itself, what keeps it alive in people's minds. And in the end, whether they were just colleagues, close friends, or something more, perhaps the answer never really mattered. Because what kept people going wasn't the label, but the feeling they felt when they saw them together, the feeling that beneath it all, there was something genuine and genuine.